Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my husband for lying to me about my sister and her baby leaving when he actually kicked her out? My sister 20 got out of a terrible relationship and moved in with me and my husband and brought her 5-month-old son. She's dealing with a handful of issues, from PPD to depression. I asked my husband if he'd be okay with her moving in, and he said absolutely. Not just this, but he was the one who picked her/brought her home. She stayed for 2 weeks and helped around the house. My husband started complaining about the baby crying, but a newborn is expected to cry especially at night. He said it causes him stress, although I suggested he put on earbuds. He suddenly told me to forget it, and so I did. Last week, I had to go out of town to attend a friend's funeral without my husband. He said he wanted to stay with my sister to make sure she's okay. I returned home the next day and didn't find her or her baby home. My husband said she contacted a friend in another town and wanted to move in with them and left that morning. He handed me a letter he claimed was from her. This felt odd, especially after reading the letter. I called her phone many times, but turned out my husband found it and said she must have left it behind. I was worried. I had no means of contacting her to make sure she was okay. I contacted relatives, but they knew nothing. Then yesterday, I got a call from an unknown number and it was her. We talked and she told me that she didn't leave on her own, but my husband kicked her out after telling her that she was no longer welcome and she needed to take responsibility for her decisions. I was shocked as she explained that she's not with a friend, but at a shelter and she has no money. I waited till he got home and I blew up at him. He admitted he faked the letter and hid her phone, then argued that it's his house too and he has a say. But he shouldn't have lied to me about my sister and causing her to be homeless. He said I was being unfair and wrong to lash out at him for wanting peace in his home. I went upstairs and refused to argue anymore. I told him I'm going to pick her up tomorrow and he said he'd change the locks while I'm gone, and I won't be allowed to bring her home. I'm thinking of going to a hotel, but he kept saying that I'm letting my sister affect our lives by prioritizing her. But there's a baby involved, my nephew, and I can't leave him homeless. I get that it is his house too, but I don't see why he's so against her staying. Now for the top comments before the little update. Not Dayhall. He waited until you were out of town so that you couldn't object. So that you couldn't protect her, as he not only kicked her out, but took her freaking phone so she couldn't contact you. He is a dangerous man. He threw a woman and her newborn onto the street without a care in the freaking world. Now he is threatening to lock you out of your own house? You need to divorce him immediately. He left a young mother and her young infant on the street and without protection because he was losing a little sleep and stressed. Now he is threatening to evict you from your own home? This is abhorrent. Bring her and the nephew back. Consult an attorney and get him out ASAP. He targeted a victim of an awful relationship for further mistreatment. Very freaking methodically. He timed this move for when her one advocate was out of town, and then crafted multiple, elaborate layers of deception to make sure you could not contact each other, and get her out of yet another unsafe situation he'd forced her into. Now he wants Opie to be homeless too. Like many spouses of abusive men, Opie's probably grappling with the instinct to show far more consideration for his feelings and basic needs than he would ever show for hers. This man is not your family member. This man is a threat to both of them. Divorce this man. OMG. He went behind your back to do this to your loved one. He even faked a letter and hid her phone from you. This is completely out of proportion to anything that happened. This was unwarranted cruelty and a breach of trust. GTFO of that relationship. He will absolutely repeat that behavior. Not stay home. He stole her phone and sent her to a homeless shelter with no phone. Like I don't know anyone's numbers. If someone took my phone and sent me to a homeless shelter, I'd basically be stuck there forever because I'd never be able to call someone to help. It's super lucky Opie's sister was even able to get in contact. Little update. He returned home and we started arguing again. I couldn't take it anymore, and I'm going to stay at a hotel for tonight. I'm leaving in an hour or so. He is wanting to talk again now, but I'm incredibly overwhelmed and stressed out and need some time by myself. I don't care if he's going to change the locks or not. I'm working on meeting up with my sister as soon as possible so we can talk more openly about what happened and hopefully try and figure something out. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making inappropriate noises when my mother-in-law called my husband's phone at 2 a.m.? My husband Kevin and I got married months ago, and ever since we moved away, his mom has started calling more often. She had a mental breakdown when she heard we were moving. She begged we stay near because she needs him, though her 2 older sons are there. Anyhow, she'd call at random times, then started calling in the middle of the night, specifically at 2 a.m. I thought that was so weird, but she said she wanted to hear Kevin's voice but was too busy to call during the day. Kevin responds to her call every time, saying he's worried there might be an emergency. It's exhausting and completely ruins our alone time. I asked her to call at like 10, but no, she kept calling at 2 a.m. Kevin said he can't bring himself to ignore her calls and asked that I be patient. Last night, I decided I wasn't having it. I waited till Kevin was asleep and put his phone on vibrate and waited for her to call. 2 o'clock rolls around and the phone starts vibrating on a nightstand. I stretch my arm to answer and then I start making bedroom noises from the bed. I'm talking full-on moaning, and then some dirty talk, then moaning. Few seconds in and she ends the call. Kevin wakes up and asks if I was alright. I tell him it's just a fever, then he goes back to sleep. I woke up to a complete disaster with Kevin angrily asking what the heck I did last night when his mom called. Clearly, she was livid and mortified because Kevin said I just traumatized her by having her think we were doing it when she called. I told him what I did and insisted it was just out of frustration. But he said I shouldn't have done that and embarrassed him and made his mom uncomfortable. I said she was calling at 2 a.m. He said still I acted childishly and potentially harmed his relationship with her. I told him to just tell her I was behind this, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about it, I will." Then demanded I apologize to her immediately, but her shaming texts made me refuse. I might have gone about this the wrong way, but I was just frustrated, that's all. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Was it childish? Absolutely. But so is she. However, the biggest problem here isn't your mother-in-law, it's your husband. Not the a-hole. They seem to have a codependent relationship and you're stuck in the middle. He says you made his mom uncomfortable. Always being woke up at 2 a.m. isn't comfortable for you either, OP. The above post is spot on. Your husband is the problem. There's a reason sleep deprivation is considered torture. The others are right though, you have a husband problem. Maybe he needs to sleep elsewhere so that when mommy calls, to make sure that umbilical cord is still attached but you're not disturbed. Exactly. If my mom were doing this, I would put a stop to it. I was on a business trip a few years ago, and my mom called around 3:30/4 a.m., which for her was 6:30/7 a.m. She was mortified when she was told what time it was where I was. She hadn't thought about the time difference. This is purposeful in the middle of the night, and the husband, if he wants to keep a wife, needs to put a stop to it. Everyone sucks here. You're aiming your anger at the wrong person. If your husband didn't answer, you wouldn't be waking up every night at 2 because of his mother. You have a husband issue, not a mother-in-law issue. And the more you're going to do that kind of silliness, the more he's going to treat you like a child and like you're the problem. You need couples counseling. She has both. Yes, if her husband didn't answer, you bet your bottom dollar the mother-in-law would keep calling and calling and calling, then nobody would get any sleep. Not stay home. I probably wouldn't have made those noises, but I probably would have asked her to please not call at 2 a.m. since her pansy son won't do it. Sorry you married a mama's boy and not a man. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for turning my husband's gaming room into an office? My husband is out of job. He has been for months now and doesn't have any money because he spent it all in gaming gears and animals. I'm the breadwinner right now and recently was given a work-from-home job. We have 2 kids that understandably make a lot of noise, so there's not a quiet spot in the house except a bedroom. But my husband refused to let me work from there and said that 1, it makes me look unprofessional, and 2, he doesn't want to be restricted from space. I asked if he'd let me take his gaming room and turn it into an office temporarily, but he said no. I had a fight with him and ended up moving his gaming stuff into the bedroom. He found out and lost his temper. I told him he left me no choice, especially after I offered a compromise to share the room. But since it plays at random times, he said no. He kept yelling at me, calling me irresponsible and a dictator. I firmly told him that this is part of the house. That is my space too. But he said, no, no, no. Your space is the kitchen. This pushed me to lash back at him and he left. But said by the time he got back, everything needed to be put back. He came home drunk, so I didn't want to fight with him. He then kept ranting about wanting his room back even after I tried to convince him to play in the bedroom all he wants. Yet he's not having it and wants the atmosphere his gaming room has. Am I the a-hole for this, or is he being unreasonable? I'll give him back the room if it turns out that I'm the a-hole. Edited to add for some clarification. When he said my space is the kitchen, I think what he meant is that I control everything there. From decoration to appliances, and I spent more time there compared to him. B. He used to contribute in a lot of things when he had a job. He used to pay for the kids' needs and handle bills and groceries. He makes sure to remind me about how much he used to do every day and tends to bring it up in every argument. He's not happy with losing his job, but circumstances are uncontrollable. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Can't work in your room, can't work in his gaming room. The kids need to be taken care of. Saying you belong in the kitchen is such a degrading comment. I hope things improve for you both. Honestly, it's tiring having to even fight about this. I have offered more than compromise, but he wasn't having any of it. I get that his gaming room is his personal space that he worked hard to create, but I wouldn't have done this if circumstances were different. You could put his stove plus a bed in the gaming room and you take the bedroom, which he's no longer allowed in. He'd probably agree to that. I mean, it really is more comfortable having your own bed. Not the a-hole. A space for working trumps an entire space for playing video games. Besides, while you're working, he's taking care of the kids and housework since he's unemployed, right? Agreed. But with as pig-headed as he is about losing his game room, I don't see helping Opie with the kids or housework without constant nagging at a possible fight. Dude went out and got drunk because he couldn't hide away in his dedicated game room anymore. Sounds like teenager attitude to me. No, no, no. Your space is the kitchen. This sealed the deal for me. You're raising 3 kids. I'm a gamer myself, but if I were a stay-at-home dad, I'd be doing everything to make it easier for her while looking for a damn job. Then bro said your space is the kitchen? I have no words. Might want to evaluate your marriage with this guy. Not saying divorce, actually I kinda am, but this dude needs a lesson. NTA, NTA, NTA. He actually said that in comparison to the gaming room. He pointed out how I control everything in the kitchen for decorations to time spent in it. But I don't think it's the same because he just doesn't want to spend time in the kitchen. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for taking a major financial decision without the input of my fiancé? This is going to be a long post with a lot of background info, so please bear with me. Before I, 32 male, was born, my mom found out that my bio father was cheating. They started on the divorce proceedings before she found out she was expecting. When she told him, he said that was impossible since he was infertile and she must have cheated. He asked for a paternity test, but she was emotionally exhausted and now suspects he was abusive, but she never told me so. So she asked instead that he sign away his parental rights since he was so sure that it wasn't his. Then she moved in with my grandparents. When I was 14, I asked her about him and I wanted a full story. She told me what I wrote above, and me, being the immature teen boy that I was, threatened to run away unless she contacted him. I thought then that she was just being petty, and that if I had proof I was his kid, he would be a dad. When she did, he sent this really hurtful letter to both of us, calling her a lot of names that makes my blood boil, and accusing her of trying to bleed him dry for his money. That was the day I decided that I don't need him at all. Fast forward to about 8 months ago. I guess he had a near-death experience and tried to contact my mom to apologize for what he did. Of course, she refused, but he managed to get a picture of me, and I'm like his clone. He contacted me saying that he was wrong and immature, and that he wanted to get to know the only kid he had in his life, but I refused. Then he started trying to bribe me to interact with him, offering to pay for my student loans, offering to get me a house, inviting me on expensive trips, and I refused everything. I told my fiancé, female 29, everything, and she was supportive at first. Then she started to urge me to get him to pay off our loans and help us to get a home. I refused categorically. It is relevant to mention that due to the pandemic, we have a lot of debt, and we delayed our wedding just to pay some of it down. I got fed up and asked him to meet. Then I told him that I will never accept a cent from him, and if he tried to contact me again, I would be calling the cops and be doing my best to get a restraining order. When I told my fiancée, she exploded on me. Said that me making that big a financial decision without consulting her showed her just how controlling and selfish I am. Now she left and won't answer my calls. So am I the a-hole? P.S. First, thank you all. I have read every single comment. Second, since I've seen it a lot in the comments, we are not in a desperate situation. The debt we decided to pay was all credit card debt, less than $6,000, and we are not planning to pay for our wedding by borrowing. That's why we decided to postpone it so we can save for it. We are currently in all our bills, and are paying extra for the credit card and saving for our wedding at the same time. Not the a-hole. This isn't a big financial decision. This is you squaring away family affairs and making it damn clear about a relationship with a man you do not want. Your fiancé seems more interested in milking the situation of money rather than giving a damn about how you feel. Good riddance, she's left, I'd say. Exactly. Not the a-hole, and you've just learned a valuable lesson. Your fiancé is manipulating you for financial gain without any regard for your feelings. She just showed you her true colors. To be honest, the more I think about it, the more I'm appalled by her behavior. She left in an attempt to manipulate you and guilt you into taking money from a possibly abusive person. She has no problem exposing you to a toxic relationship if it means she'll get money out of it. It seems like she doesn't really care about you. I've read plenty of stories here where people were encouraged to get money from their horrible parents to at least get something out of a bad situation. Usually minors who needed to not get financially stunted, but Opie's an adult that has the liberty of not resorting to these kinds of measures. Regardless, this is the kind of decision that a person has to make individually. Whether the money is worth the trauma, and the only input a partner should have in it is supporting their person through a tough situation. I want to give Opie's fiancé the benefit of the doubt. It sounds like they were offered a life-changing amount of money, the kind that blinds people. It doesn't make the reaction okay, but it is something that could possibly be worked through. Either way, I'm sorry Opie has been put through this type of situation. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my mom my brother and I were not her pawns to rename when it worked for her? I, 18 female, lost my dad when I was 8. My brother Cole was 6, my sister was 2, and my brother Logan was 4 months old. 2 years after our dad died, our mom remarried. Our mom then went through the process of trying to change all our names to his. Cole and I objected, and we actually spoke out in court saying we didn't want our names changed. We didn't want to be adopted, which my sister and Logan eventually were after they gave up on me and Cole. And the judge agreed with us since we were used to our last name. It was always a point of contention, and our mom refused to acknowledge our last name anyway and always called us the stepdad's last name, family. Always. And she would always try to get extracurriculars and stuff to use her name instead of our name, in a non-legal sense, which bugged the crap out of us. One of my teachers used to write my legal name, but call me by my stepdad's name because she and my mom were friends, and it sucked. They never stopped asking us to change it, and then around Christmas, my brother wanted to be registered for some professional art classes, and our mom tried to bargain with him that she would sign him up for the classes if he would agree to change his name. My brother said it was fine, and he wouldn't take the classes. Our mom freaked out. She called me, and she told me that we were behaving like brats and hurting her and our stepdad's feelings. I told her she needed to stop, that we weren't her little pawns to rename whenever she liked, that she had to accept we had our dad's name, and her husband was never going to be our dad, and that she had driven us both away, as well as ruined the relationship with our younger siblings, because they see us as bad for not changing our names. I told her that all of this comes back to her and trying to force us to change something we had grown used to, our last name. She told me she was doing the best thing for the family. I rejected that and told her she was doing the best thing for her, not us. We haven't talked since, and my brother said she's still pissed as hell at us both because of it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top judgment. Not Dayhole. She told me that we were behaving like brats and hurting her and our stepdad's feelings. She is the one acting like that, not Opie. It's always projection, isn't it? Behaving like a brat and hurting the feelings of those close to you. Did the mother accidentally stumble into a room with a mirror? Not Dayhole. She is just trying to erase the fact that her husband is not your father and has consistently refused to accept your own feelings on the matter. I'm assuming by adoption, you mean your younger siblings were adopted by stepdad so that he would legally be their father while your mother stays as their mother. If so, then that would not be an a-hole move, since the distinction would matter for things like healthcare. Example, stepdad would not be able to consent on behalf of a minor, but legal adoption dad would. They wanted him to adopt all 4 of us, but Cole and I didn't want it. They delayed adopting the younger 2, but eventually realized they would never get consent for all 4 of us to be adopted. So he adopted them. Your mom is the clear antagonist in this story, but where is her husband in all of this? He can be just as forceful and pushy. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for lawyering up when my ex and her husband started divorce proceedings? Little background. I was deeply closeted when I married my ex-wife. I came out right after my daughter was born, and we continued on in what was basically an open marriage for 2 years, until she met her soon-to-be ex-husband and told me she wanted a divorce. It was amicable, and we co-parented with only the bare bones of a custody agreement for 10 years. I met my husband 2 years later, and we got married a couple months after it was legal. My son, then 12, was an honorary groomsman. The 4 of us get on amicably, and I will fully admit that my ex's husband has as much right to call himself their dad as I do. He cheated on her is the thing. My son, 16, was the one to discover the text that the couple lewd pictures to another woman when he was helping my ex's husband set something up on his laptop. So where we stand now is that my son is old enough that custody agreements don't apply to him, and as a result, he's living with me and my husband until things blow over. My daughter is a different story, as she's 13. So in the anticipation that the ex's husband would want partial custody, I hired a lawyer to defend my parts of the custody agreements we already had. I don't want to see her less than I already do. I don't want a stricter agreement than what we already have. And I don't want to get drawn into my ex and her soon-to-be ex's fight. So in preparation, I lawyered up. Ex of X took that news poorly and posted this whole rant on Facebook about people taking advantage of other people's misfortune and indirectly called me a vulture. He brought up the fact that my son is living with me currently and acted as if I was trying to deprive him of his kids. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The advantage of step-families like yours is that the children have more than 2 loving parents. But the disadvantage is that if one of the parents divorce, the former step-parent now legally has no rights to the children in most cases. It's wise of you to get a lawyer if the custody arrangement for your children is being revisited. And save a screenshot of that Facebook post to show the lawyer. Not the a-hole. His kids? They ain't his kids. Don't get involved with someone else and expect to still play house. Dude, this is why the sub sucks. In every post about problems with step-parents and step-kids, they are told they are the a-holes if they don't treat and love their step-kids exactly like they do their own bio-kids. And that the entire step-family, step-grandma and grandpa, are complete a-holes if they don't treat them the same. Example, paying for bio/adopted kids schooling and not step-kids. Bigger presents for bio-grandkids. The difference is, and why lots of step-parents don't treat them the same, is they aren't their parents if a divorce happens. Unless the step-parent has adopted the step-kid, there is a high chance they will not be allowed to see them anymore. Lots of step-families realize that their relationship with the step-kids only lasts until the bio-parent decides it ends. That can make bonding even more difficult, and in that many step-kids have 2 parents already. Too long didn't read. The stepdad was a freaking a-hole for cheating, but to say they ain't his kids when they were his kids up until the divorce is messed up to the kid and to the adult. Parent-kid relationships don't end when a divorce paper is signed and it's, "Bye, I know I treated you like you were my own, but see ya." A kid doesn't understand why step-parent who was their parent in all the ways their bio-parent was, suddenly isn't anymore. Talk about damaging a kid. Don't punish a kid because of a divorce. Unless there was abuse or the kid hated a step-parent. This case, it sounds like from what Opie said, this ex-step-parent was a great parent. Not a-hole. They are your kids unless he adopted them, which it doesn't sound like he did. Also, protect your retirement right now. Your ex, if she is broke after the divorce, might become desperate for funds and try to revisit your divorce settlement. Some states allow this, Florida for one, some don't. Be proactive on this. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my ex have anything of our daughter's belongings? My daughter was born with a chronic heart condition. We spent months in the hospital. At the time, my ex started complaining that this was too much, and her family suggested that she get some rest from the stress aside from postpartum. Her family said they were worried for their daughter. However, they didn't care much about their granddaughter. They told me that their daughter's physical and emotional health was more important than my daughter's. Her family hated me, and I know that they secretly wished that my daughter die so they could get rid of me and have nothing to do with me. My ex's family didn't let me talk to my ex about our daughter. They even sent me texts telling me they can't wait for this to be over and for their daughter to move on. I'm not gonna lie, I resent them for that. When my daughter was 6 months old, my ex left the apartment and left our daughter at my mom's house. She said she couldn't live with me because of those circumstances. She just couldn't handle the responsibility and saw no future with me. We were only engaged at the time, so I got the ring back and I became my daughter's only present. It was only me and my mom at the hospital. At some point, I had to beg my ex's family for money, but I was being told to get the hell out of their house and not come back several times, telling me it wasn't their problem since their daughter rented it. They called me pathetic and even said they'd get the state to take my daughter because of how irresponsible I was. I stopped talking to them. I had to do all I can and come up with the money. My daughter had undergone 2 surgeries, and medication didn't improve her condition. She eventually passed away 3 months ago. She was only 3.5 years old. Didn't even get a decent birthday celebration that I was planning for her 4th year. I was devastated. I felt like my ex and her family won. This past week, I was surprised to see my ex at my door and lashing out and calling me nasty names. She kept yelling at me, asking how I could do this to her, and not let her know that her baby passed away and that had to hear from a mutual friend. I didn't want to talk, so I told her to leave. I had so much anger from seeing her, and there was no guarantee I wasn't going to do anything stupid. Her family played along in berating me and calling me cruel. Yesterday, she showed up with her sister wanting to take some of my daughter's belongings. I refused and told her to leave. My mom was there. She told me to stop and let her in to take what she wanted, but I yelled at her and told her that she has no rights because everything was bought by me. Despite not having money, I managed to buy her toys and clothes, while my ex and her family turned their back on their own blood. She's now talking to my friends to pressure me into letting her take my daughter's things. I kept ignoring them, but at this point, there's no avoiding it. The reason her family never accepted me is because they think they're better than me. They claimed that I was with her for money. I was 25 and she was 30 when we started dating. To them, that was an obvious sign that I was with her for money, and they made sure I got nothing, even when they saw me struggling trying to provide for their granddaughter. They controlled my ex, banned me from moving to her place, and insulted my living situation, and cut any support to their own daughter to get her to realize that she made a mistake and leave. But with our daughter in the picture, things got complicated. But they got what they wanted eventually. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. She chose to not be involved in the kid's life. That's on her. She's not entitled to souvenirs now. She doesn't want a souvenir. Those are for memories. What could she possibly have memories of? She wants to resell them for cash. Not a-hole. She effectively abandoned her living child. And she's come back to... what? Keep the scraps of her memory? With the money you used to buy those things. She should have been there to have solid real memories when your daughter was alive and needed her mother. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I wish you all the comfort and peace in your time of grieving. There's no peace at this point. I keep refusing and she keeps pushing. I'm literally losing it and her family won't leave me alone. I guess they only care about looking good to outsiders, constantly claiming confusion and playing innocent. I'm done with their BS. And lately, I have been thinking about moving away, but now I'm seriously considering it. Not Dayhall. Your ex is a pretty poor excuse for a human being, and it seems that's probably hereditary. Demanding things from your daughter that you purchased is about as low as you can get, given the circumstances. The only items I would let her anywhere near were items that she or her family purchased. If you've got anything that they provided, perhaps post or courier them to them. As if it was me, I probably wouldn't want anything from them in my living space. But I would not let any of them enter your property, ever. Take out a restraining order or report them to police if you need to. Just make sure they keep their distance. Condolences for your loss. It's a pretty difficult scenario to have to go through. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that it is her fault that our son doesn't tell her anything? Me, 45 male, and my wife, 42 female, are currently going through a divorce. We have been married for 17 years, and the past few haven't been the best in my opinion. We have 3 kids, 11 female, 14 female, 17 male, and the custody has been a big issue and has caused many arguments. The main argument is happening because our son, unprompted, asked if I could have sole custody of him. This request absolutely floored my wife. She couldn't understand why this was happening and accused me of coercing our son. The thing is that my wife and son haven't had a decent relationship in a long time. He started getting noticeably distant from her when he was 8, and while it got slightly better when he was about 14, it has since taken a nosedive. In my opinion, my wife has some really narcissistic tendencies. She can find a way to make anything about herself. She even did this when we found out about our son's mental health struggle and attempts, despite her admitting that she never went through that. Sorry for the rambling, on to my question. Our son is currently in his last year of college and has been applying to unis and other forms of higher education. Like almost every student, he has a dream school. This school is oversubscribed and ridiculously hard to get into. The course he wants to do for his undergrad has 28 spots. This is a well-known school in my country's capital city, so you can imagine how many applicants there are. Last week, my son came to me sobbing. He was so overwhelmed that he couldn't even talk. He just handed me a letter. It was his acceptance letter for his dream school. I just hugged him and let him cry and told him how proud I was of him. Fast forward to yesterday, the topic of funding our kids' education came up. Like how we would split costs for school clubs, trips, university, and college. During this, my wife said she had no idea what our son's university tuition would cost, or if he's even going to a university. I knew his yearly tuition cost £14,000, so I told this to my wife. She asked how the hell I knew this. I told her that our son had been accepted into his dream school, so I knew the exact costs. She started freaking out and asked me when this happened. I told her that he got the letter last week. She started yelling at me for keeping this from her. I told her that our son came and told me of his own accord and that it was his news to share with who he wants to. Here's where I might be the a-hole. I then told her that it was her fault that our son didn't share this with her. She asked me what I meant, and I explained that they didn't really have a relationship and that her ridiculously high expectations for him drove him away. She then stormed off. Looking back on it, that probably was way too harsh. I know that she's going through a lot right now and probably doesn't need reminding of her relationship, or lack thereof, with our son. I still stand by my point. So am I the a-hole? Edit. Sorry for the confusion about the fees not adding up. The school is private and separate from UCAS. That's why the tuition is so high. Not the a-hole. Her reaction to her son being accepted to his dream school was to get angry because of how she found out. That tells me everything I need to know about her. Congrats to you and the kid. Hard work pays off. I thought that as well. She never even gave any indication that she was proud or impressed or happy for him. Not the a-hole. Maybe it was a little harsh, but you're right. It was your son's free will. If your wife doesn't bother to have a great relationship with her son, it isn't your fault for pointing it out. Congrats to your son for getting into his dream college. You seem like a great dad. No a-holes here. Her past actions have consequences. She can't expect anything more. Though maybe try and encourage your son to let her know, out of courtesy, about huge things like this, such as university, work, etc. Especially if she's going to be paying towards these things. That gives her a right to know. He by no means has to share personal things with her though. This is fairer. She can't expect to be told about decisions that affect her finances. This was a conversation about how they would be splitting costs for son's school, and Opie is getting all it's his news to share or not about it, while asking for thousands of dollars a year to pay for it? You can't be all, you don't deserve to know these things, your bill is $8,000. Come on. Would like to hear the other side of this, honestly. Until then, I think it's no a-holes here. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.